So taking the team away on a preseason trip, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Absolutely good thing because the preseason trip isn't always about the training. The training sometimes even might back step in a way, but it's the first chance that you will get as a group for that year to get away from your family lives, get away from other things that are really really important in your world. But then you can just center in on that team, look at your dynamics and do your goal setting in a unique environment that is and have the normal distractions. And that's why you go away on a team thing. It's not necessarily about hard training. It's about people getting to meet and understand, you getting to walk in front of the group so that they can understand and build empathy and build good relationships around each other.
G'day, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Thank you, Kieren. How are you?
Yeah, going well, thanks. So, what's been going on in life, and what have you been up to over the New Year slash Christmas break?
Yeah, definitely enjoyed the break. It was a super busy year. Normal job, which is really fun. 9 to 5 type S&C job, and then obviously helped out SG Ball and then NRLW as well. So made it a really long year. So over the Christmas and New Year break, just chilled out basically, catching up with friends and family. Didn't travel for the first time in a long time, so yeah, definitely got time to rejuvenate the batteries. How about you?
Yeah, very similar in terms of just not traveling too much, just going back home to Canberra from Adelaide and just trying to, relax as much as possible after a big year and a move down to Adelaide, and then also, expecting the next first part of the year to be quite busy in terms of work, but in terms of, Elite Rugby SandC stuff. So, just enjoyed the downtime as much as possible, and you probably don't sort of, I don't know, value it too much until you're there and doing not much and just switching off and just, you're going for walks, you're going down to the beach or whatever it is, but it's just nice and easy before you get back to your normal routine and all of life's joys comes to you all at once. So yeah, it was really good just to switch off for a bit, relax, have time for me, and yeah, sort of hit the ground running now.
Yeah, excellent. It's amazing just breaking the routine up, how good it can be. Like it's great to have a routine that keeps you working hard and fit and engaged, but definitely breaking a routine is stops that pattern, makes things feels like you have a lot more time.
And then it also makes you wonder when you go back to your routine, how do you want to, do that routine? Do you want to change it up a little bit? Do you want to, add some stuff into it as well? So it's a good way to sort of take a step back and really understand what you're trying to do when you do go back to your normal routine.
Yep, absolutely.
So in the world of sports, we do see a lot of head coaches come and go, depending on what sport you're in. In rugby, it's very normal. In the NFL, it seems like there's a new head coach every year, at least 6 or 8 organizations, so it's quite a high turnover. In your experience in sport, how do you create a successful environment within a rugby organization?
Yeah, so the places that have been successful that I've been at, and that's most of them, luckily, through particularly the rugby, they've been really stable environments. And what do I need by stable environments? Well, they've had staff, the back end staff, from a management point of view, in the delivery staff and the coaching and the performance team there for a long period of time. And also, each one of those people has a chance to develop. So, if someone does move out of that system, it's usually moving up and towards a better role somewhere else. And then someone gets to step into it. So, it's almost like how you'd set up your academy system, where people are earmarked for what they could potentially do in the future, not just now, and what development do they need around them to get to that point. They're the most successful organizations. And luckily, I've just looked from the outside. The ones that chop and change a lot and expect almost a bit of wizardry, where someone comes in uh, and they expect success in a short period of time. They'll find that you might get a reaction for 2, 3 weeks or 4 weeks, um, from a motivation point of view, where the performances look on their way up, but the structure, the organization, the technical and tactical work, that takes a long time to develop. That's not a few weeks. That's years to develop and fine tune and improve. Yeah, that's my experience so far. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's not just sort of the head coach, it's the whole organization as you talked about. And if you got those really good systems in place and hire within and show that you have promotion within as well, you're going to make it a more enjoyable experience. And people are going to be there for a while because they know, okay, in possibly 2, 3 years time, I'm going to be into the next role, and that person's going to go to the next role, and I'm really going to challenge myself. So they're probably already working at the capacity of that next role, and it's something we've talked about on another episode as well. Is just making sure that you're training for that next level. You might not be there right now, but you need to be doing it right now. So when you get to there, you're ready to go. So I think just having that type of environment is going to create success. And when a head coach does come in, try and understand where that team is at. I'm sure they're all doing this, but understand where that team's at. Understand what are the good things they're doing, what are some areas they need to work on, but you probably don't need to change everything. You probably just need to stop the team doing dumb things, to be honest. And that's a good way to come in, is like, okay, what are some things that aren't really that smart we can just stop doing and start doing this instead? And that you could see some really good positive changes quite quickly, and ones that also can lead and sort of have that snowball effect a bit later on in the season. So the good the best head coaches I've worked with, have just come in and really made sure that they've got a good, fun, enjoyable environment, but, making sure that athletes are really switched on and have a really good tactical approach to it as well, but know how to have really serious areas out there in the field and training, but also know how to switch off as well. So I think if you can just bring your approach and stop doing the dumb things. I think it is a good way to do it. But yeah, making sure that you got a good, enjoyable environment can go a long way to having success on and off the field.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
So, what has worked well in rugby environments you've worked in?
Well, it's usually as people move up, as head coaches come in or coaches and staff come in from, say, different programs, or they've progressed up. So they've come from like an academy system and they've gone into the pro team. The first thing is being able to realize that you've got to let go of some of the reins of everything, because when you're at the lower levels, you're doing everything. Let's say from a strength and conditioning point of view, if you're a strength and conditioning coach at a club, you've got to organize the strength, the conditioning, the speed, the rehab, the scheduling, the planning, or your game day. As you move up, the beautiful thing is there's a couple more coaches around. So you get to, if you're in charge, just delegate and decide who looks after what. And that's based on that person's passion or their ability to develop or deliver that product. Um, and you've got to let go of some of the reins. So, and you see that from the coach's point of view as well. Those that are willing to trust in other people, not micromanage, and collaborate and let go, when they focus on the management and of the staff themselves, that's when programs go better, rather than trying to do everything yourself. And that's probably management in all business as well, but particularly in rugby, because you're so or team sport, you're so used to needing to do everything. To switch off from that's quite hard, because you deep down you might think that you're being lazy by not trying to do that, but you're actually just making everything higher focused, and you're able to spend more energy on tasks rather than trying to do everything.
And that just sounds very similar to, as you being the captain of your team as well. You don't feel like you have to do everything for the team. If you have a good leadership group within that team, then you can easily delegate all these, minor little issues and allow those players to deal with the problem and find the solution as well. And then you can really focus on the big picture stuff as well.
There's a really good book, and it's about management, and it's how to deal with waste problems. So the best way is to get people, before they mention what problem they have to write down the problem in great detail and write down two solutions, and then they come and present that to you. Most of the time, people solve their own problems, or there's a bit of barrier. There's too much. There's more work involved, so problems that are minor, that aren't really problems, don't get brought to you as well. So because they start solving them themselves, and that's ability again, is to not micromanage and allow that those people will make good decisions. They just have to inform you of the decision post that. But if it's major, then they involve you.
If you are wanting to, ask the question, figure out the problem, then you want to know the answer. Don't just be asking the question for the question's sake. You are asking, and you have to be ready for the answer, and it might not be an answer that you like as well. That's something that I learned from Jordan B. Peterson as well. Don't just ask a dumb question. Really make sure that you're seeking out what that answer is as well. So no, it's a good point there, Ben.
Mm. Cool.
But yeah, I think in like what has worked well is, just having that clear pathway as coaches. If we have that clear pathway in an academy or just in your rugby environment of, this is what a player needs to do in order to be successful out on the field and off the field as well. And then you'll just allow your other coaches to sort of create their own programs from that vision as well. If they're working in a lower level in the academies, and then they've got the 13s, the 15s, and then someone else has got the 16s, the 18s, and all the way up. If you have that clear structure of that long-term athletic development, but allow coaches to have their own, secret herbs and spices into that program, it's going to make it more enjoyable. And, you don't have to micromanage or anything, because they know the outcome, what they're trying to achieve. It's just they can put in their 2 cents and what they think is going to best help that population of athletes that they have right at that time.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't mind adding to that. What works well, when you've got a coaching staff that have a game model. And what is a game model? It's um, how the key things that you do in attack. Okay, that's a cycle of from getting the ball to getting set in positions and so forth. Then it's when you're in D, how you transfer to D, what you do in your D cycle, and then that's your transition from attack to defense to attack, and the policy on kick chase. When those are really laid down fundamentally, and the basis of all your performance, writing your strength and conditioning programs comes from that, because you know how they want to play. The way it might be, we have to create width at on every opportunity. Okay, if we do that, we need a team that can do a lot of expansive work. So a lot of our small-sided games have to be expansive-based football, where they get position. If it's okay, attack the blind side or the short side, well, we know they have to have a lot of intensive um, small-sided games, so that they can operate in little spaces and change direction really quickly. And that starts fundamentally going, okay, this is how we'll program. Or if we want all of that, we'll have to have different sections on each day that we will work on. Bringing back that's where the athletic development for that whole franchise or club moves up towards that. And then people within the club, when they're selected, are selected on whether they can execute that game plan in that position in our team now or in the future.
Yeah, it's so important, and just reminds me of, when you are going to senior footy, it's your first grade down to your Colts. They're all got the same game structure as well. I've never understood teams or organizations that I've heard of or been associated with just a little bit of, first grade play different to Colts in many different ways. And I'm just like, the structure needs to be the same throughout the whole club, so that you know that what you're trying to achieve. And then as you go up the grades, there's just going to be different variations, and they're going to expand upon these areas because they need to, because teams are going to figure them out. But they also then want to continue to evolve the game plan or the defensive plan in place. So if you have that in place, it makes it so much easier for the S&C coaches, for us, but it also makes it so much easier for the players as well, to see a clear progression of what's trying to happen, and they can sit there on the sidelines and understand, oh, that's type of structure, but they've added in this little extra bit that does this, and explores and exposes that. So I think, yeah, if you're really going to make a successful environment, allowing, yeah, whatever first grade doing, you have that clear game plan and structure for the whole year, and it filters throughout the whole club.
Yeah, and they just have more options off there. So the little Johnny 5'8" in Colts has has a lucky week where two people get injured, and all of a sudden he's got to play first grade. Well, he knows the structure, he knows the calls. Everyone else around him will go, okay, we'll keep it simple for you. Um, Instead of playing off the 10 so much, we'll play off 9 and 12 a little bit at the beginning parts as you get into the game, but then you can go from there. So it makes a massive difference. And, in Colts, they might have an option where they one out the back and they can tip either side. But then all of a sudden you start at the next level, they have a little bit more option, a little bit variation, but it's the same type of pattern. It's just decisions get made quicker and under a bit more pressure.
And if you have an environment where you allow your first graders to, be, secondary coaches as well to the lower grades, then it allows them to filter into those trainings and those training sessions, or just have a quick look over and see if second grade are doing it correctly, and just add their 2 cents into it as well, because they're all doing the same thing and they all want the same outcome. And if it's a really good inclusive environment, then those athletes are going to take on that advice from a first grader and make sure that what they're doing is being clearly filtered down towards the rest of the grades.
Yeah, definitely.
What hasn't worked well in these environments that you've been involved in?
Um, what probably hasn't worked well is people trying to jam too much into people too often. So what do I mean by that? Whether that's uh, more a cognitive load, like if you're a steep learning curve, when they try to do a lot of long meetings quite regularly, just because the attention span of a human being isn't that great. So it's pretty simple. It's working memories 3 or 5 plus or minus 2. So out of every meeting, I might remember um, if it's 3 things to 5. If I'm super fresh and quite diligent and intelligent, I might remember 7. So the longer meetings go and the more information you jam into them, the harder it is. So just understanding that you've got to have a progression and a load of your meetings as well. The other one is getting the days wrong. So just say you're traveling away with a junior rep team. They've got a game that day, and the coach goes, "Okay, I want to have individual meetings with each player on this day." All of a sudden, you've put too much pressure and time into that one individual or every individual that has to play a game rather than just focusing on the game. So it's just because you have time with them doesn't mean you have to fill time up. Sometimes you've got to give them space to actually rest and absorb a lot of cognitive information. So sitting down in meetings isn't rest. And that's when I've seen meetings when they grow too big, your training sessions are poor. Probably the other one is you've got to have a really concise, fun meeting. Start with fun, end with fun. A little bit of detail, a little bit of video, but make sure that everyone leaves fired up. That would be some things I've seen them executed well, but when it's executed poorly, it just does make life hard for everyone because you've got to try and fire these people up on the field that have gone. We've had a gym session, we've had a meeting, we've had a gym session, we've had a meeting. Now we've had units. Now we have to go to a field session, and after another meeting, it's just ups and downs, and the human body and mind just can't handle all of that. So it's timing those things really well that matters.
What are some fun ways to make the meetings more enjoyable at the start and at the end?
So you always start with like, what do we like in video? You always start with executing something really well. All right, that's great. But if the team hasn't, start with something funny. It could be someone was running along and they tripped over in the middle of a game. You put that up there, everyone has a little bit of a laugh. Then you get into your meeting. But also, when you in your meeting, if you haven't seen it in games where they're executed what you want, you go, "Oh, this wasn't executed well." Show what they've done in a training session, what's that, so that they can build confidence. That, oh, we can do that. We just haven't done that in a game yet. So that's little things, top and tail. Start with fun or massively motivating, finish with confidence building.
No, I really like that. And I know at the Brumbies as well, they do have that Wheel of Fortune as well. So if athletes have potentially done something wrong during that week or were late for the bus or something like that, they have to spin this wheel, and whatever it lands on is the punishment. And I remember seeing one of them was call up Dave Rennie and have a few minutes chat with him. So that would be a fun conversation to have, or you do the team laundry for the week, or just something like that could also be just a great way to, especially on a Monday when your team's really low and they're sore and it's the beginning of the week, doing something like that to be really uplifting and have the blooper of the week from the game or something like that, I think, yeah, it can go a long way, and it makes those meetings a little bit more enjoyable. But it's just those little one percenters that make a big difference.
Yeah, I got a couple of really, really cool stories. I'll leave out the people and I won't give the actual name of awards or anything. One of the classics was, and I will give Darcy Swain away here. He had to come in and do a song. He absolutely owned it. Came in full kit uniform, guitar, can't play the guitar, but got everyone singing. It was absolutely hilarious. And then the most annoying penalty out of everyone was you've got to wear a suit to and from work, so it's formal. So you had to come in and get a photo with the physio on the way in and a photo on the way out. And that's just absolute niggle. It's quite a good punishment. So making it fun is quite good. And the award each week, I won't say the name, they'd have the person that did the hardest amount of work, like they don't get seen doing it in the game, like number of cleanouts, tackles, or meters off the ball to get in position. So they're rewarding massive effort areas, and that was always rewarded each week as the first thing, like that work rate area, and that was the biggest award that you could get from the team or the coaching staff, was the person that did the hard stuff that no one sees, that the media never talks about.
No, it's really important to, address that, and yeah, it's a great way to start the week as well. For me, that things that haven't worked well, and I couldn't, agree more, is it's just those meetings. If you're having a meeting that's going on longer, let's say, then depending what level you're at, we could say 10, 15, anything longer than that, you're probably not getting your message across as effectively as you want, and the boys are just going to be in there just going like, come on, let's go train, let's just go do something else, rather than you just continuing to talk about the same point, but you've just dragged it on for however long it is. So you really just got to make sure that you're short and sharp to the meeting. And for me myself, I really enjoy just, identifying what we need to work on, and then let's get out there and get into those positions, and then you can have little talks out on the field, not for too long. If you're having to stop training for a good 5 minutes to get this point across, then you're just doing the same thing if you were just in the meeting room. So if you can make sure that you're very clear of what you want, let's get out there and do it, let's work on it, because that's all we can really do is our actions. Our words can go for however long we talk about them, but we need to do. So I really feel like our actions are much more powerful, and we need to make sure that we're out there having some good quality trainings. And just, yeah, that communication aspect. If you aren't clear of why a player hasn't made the team that week, or isn't playing, or is just doesn't have any things to work on, then you're going to see athletes not really enjoying themselves, and then that environment's not going to be the one that you want to create as well. So just being really clear on your communication and making sure that you're consistent with it, no matter who the player is, no matter what grade they're playing, I think goes a long way. And in the last few days, you saw a news article out on rugby.com.au with Len Ikitau, and he was ready to play the World Cup, and I found it quite weird that he wasn't, even thought about bringing back into the squad, because I thought his shoulder injury wasn't going to be that long, and he was ready to go, and then Eddie said, "Yeah, that's good." And that was all the communication that he got from a text. And you really got to be consistent with this communication. Doesn't matter what athlete, what level, you have to be clear to them of what your vision is for the team and for them. And just sending a text like that, it isn't good enough, no matter what level that you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, when we talked about going back to meetings, and then we'll come back to communication. Uh, Something that worked really well is present the session plan at the back end of the meeting and the expectations on how long each drill is going for and the key cues. But you're right. Particularly modern players aren't going to, and modern people aren't going to put up with poor communication. It doesn't take too much effort, and you know, at the end of the day, that's a job of a coach, is to communicate the desire, the technical and tactical, and the execution, and how we are as a club, but also all those little nuances with people as well. Because he could have called on him, but as well for the World Cup, but how is a player's buy-in if you feel that he doesn't care? Yeah, all of a sudden you might be presenting wonderful information that's perfect, but that person's going to always have the doubt in their mind: is it right? Is it not? Because they don't believe in your communication.
100%. So, what have been some coaches or team you have learned from outside of rugby that you were able to then put into your rugby coaching and S&C coaching?
Yeah, this is a long time ago. I worked at a medical devices company, and it was fantastic. And they had pictures, basically a video of the American formation fighter pilots, and they fly F-16s, I think it was at the time. And it was on their debriefing process. So what they do is after a show, because you can imagine that's an extremely dangerous environment where each other's lives are in their hands. And their debriefs have to absolutely nail everything. There's going to be a lot of challenge, like you were an extra, half a meter close. Any closer than that, I could have hit you, type of thing. And there's a rank involved with that. And normally, traditionally in the military world, you just go yes and nod to your rank. So they decided in their debriefing there is no rank, there is no seniority, and it's going to be honest truth, and we communicate and deal with that. Once we've dealt with that, it's the end of the meeting. And if someone says they won't do that and they'll go and practice it, they go accept that they will do that and they move on. I thought not that's probably the best debriefing process, and I think that could happen after games and after training sessions from a performance and coaching staff. I have yet to see it done that way. It's pretty hard to implement because human nature will revert back to rank, like head coach, head of performance, head of that. I think that would be something that I've always wanted to try and kick off and get going with those rules. I really like that. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I think some people would try and struggle with that a bit just because of egos and having that power. Like I've earned the right to be the head coach or an assistant coach, so my words are more valuable and important compared to someone else. So yeah, that would be a really good environment to be in if it's done well and it's done open and honest, and people are allowed to say what they think at that time. So I think that would be really cool. At the moment, I'm reading Sir Alex Ferguson's autobiography, and it's been really cool to understand just how he thinks. And over his time, he was in the job for 32 years, I think it was, at
Mm.
Man U. So that's a long time to be at the top level of what you do and have so much success, and to understand the ins and outs of when they transfer a player or they buy a player, bring them in, and just really make sure that they fit the Man U environment. And he was probably, in a way, not a dictatorship or anything like that, but if you did something to rub him the wrong way, or the team put the team in a bad spotlight, you're gone pretty much. So he wouldn't have, that where a player could, speak their mind in a negative way. If they want to speak their mind, they're allowed to speak their mind, but he really made sure that it was for the best of the team. And if you're not a part of that team, then you're gone. And he was always questioned about how he, you know, was able to bring players in and then why he let players go and stuff like that. So he was very consistent with his approach, and he just really made sure that he had the best possible team out there, the best possible environment, They had a really good academy going all the way through the youngins, all the way through up to the top team, and could always have really successful players come into the squad and be ready to go. So it's been really interesting with that, and how he also then found ways to, find things outside of football to, down regulate himself and de-stress. So I think if you could learn from a different sport like that, I think because he's had so much success and holds a really good insight into everything. So I think just head coaches like that go a long way. So I think yeah. So Alex Ferguson, I've still got another 100 pages to read of his book, but it's been a really interesting read. And I think if you're not into soccer, like I'm not the biggest soccer person in the world,
Football,
but
right? Football.
football, sorry, but just reading about it and like who David Beckham is, who Cristiano Ronaldo is, and he talks about them and what made them so special. Yeah, I think it's a really good book for everyone to read in rugby, or if you're in sport or in S&C, because he's done so much for football, and yeah, you can definitely learn a lot from him.
Yeah. Mate, I'll definitely have to check that out. I'll probably do the audio book. Yeah, that's how I work. um, the other thing I was thinking, if you want to learn on truly investigating and getting to the truth and the importance of honesty, a really good show is Air Crash Investigation. Like for any fatality, it takes several things to go wrong. And so I tend to think like every non-successful Rugby World Cup campaign, um, any non-performing club, there's several factors that have to be in place. It's never just one. And to thoroughly go through that and review that is really important. I think it's easier in probably aviation because people's lives matter. In sport, and people hate it. People call it elite sport. Yep, it's elite. Then absolutely elite, but it's entertainment. It's purely 100% an entertainment business. It's not life or death. So the rigorous structure and governance and looking about how well you do isn't there, despite what people think. Yeah.
100%. So, how do athletes and coaches set themselves up for a successful pre-season training block?
It's planning, 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 and then executing that plan and making the subtle adjustments based on uh, how people are reacting above, below, or above your plan. And that's progressive overload, and then working towards making your game model the center of your preseason and working on the technical and tactical and physical things that matter for your game model in a sequenced way. Um, and there's no secret or trick. It's you've got to find a way that works for your game model, your coaching staff, your athletes and their time, their age, their ability. If you're an aging team versus a younger team, if your facilities, where they are, if they're close, they're far, so many factors. But it's planning, planning, planning. Um, I used to remember Brums, we'd finish our planning before people had even start thinking of their planning. Like um, I've heard a couple of times that they get together and for a couple of days and have their plan. After our review, the next day after our review, we started. We didn't have a break. Then we started our planning right then, and then went on our break. So that would be the difference.
For me, for really having a successful preseason block, is just doing the basics right. If you're in the gym doing the basic lifts right, if you're doing your MAS running or whatever it is, interval running, just do it the basics right, because at the end of the day, when things aren't going well during the season, and there's going to be times, what do? You go back to the basics, go back to understanding this is how we play, or this is how we're meant to train in the gym, and this is what our week needs to look like. Have those basics down packed and earn the right to progress yourself throughout the preseason, but don't go too fast, especially with your game model in rugby. If you're playing club footy, it doesn't need to be complicated. It can be so simple, and then you add in those little variations, it works wonders. And I've seen it so many times where, and been involved in it as well, where it's just so basic, and then you add the variations in, and then you slowly progress yourself. I think it's up to the coach how you do that, and you can go fast, you can go slow, but at the end of the day, if you haven't got those basics right and earned the right to progress yourselves, then your preseason's probably going to be good, but you're going to find yourself halfway through the in season where you might need to go back to those basics that you may have rushed. So really make sure that you got plenty of time in the preseason, and then even in the first month of the competition, you can still be figuring some stuff out and still playing really good footy. And then towards the back end of the season, that's when it all just hits well, and you've peaked well in the gym, you've peaked well out in the field, and then when it comes finals, you're just ready to go and see what happens, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You say there's plenty of time. I probably think back to Super Rugby. You might have 4 weeks pre-Christmas, and then you'll have 3 weeks post-Christmas and get it. So you haven't got time to get it wrong. So it's a bit different from, maybe in clubland or even NRL. You've got a long time to build up. When you've got really short pre-seasons, you've got to make sure that people are working hard in between those blocks, and also that you're going to have to develop them in season as well. It's not a take the foot off the accelerator as well.
Is there anything else that comes to mind that sort of has worked really well for the preseason blocks for you and your teams?
Yeah, it's got to be that perfect balance of hard, enjoyable, and a feeling of accomplishment. And having a theme for each day. Each day has to have a unique theme on what you're trying to get done on that day, whether it's a speed-based day, so everything's based around that. Your rugby, your session prep, your gym, your work. It might be a work capacity day, so everything's working towards that. And just understanding, it's never nothing ever happens in isolation. You've got to consider, well, what's happened the day before, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening in the AM, what's happening to PM, and understanding the balance between what's the positive and negative of those situations as well, and being really particular in how you nail that. And intent is a key. Like, we can all have a great plan, a good session, but if people don't have the correct intent at the correct time with the correct focus, you're not going to succeed.
Hi everyone, we just want to take a quick break from this episode. We hope you're enjoying this episode so far and all the content we have produced. We appreciate all the support from our listeners and followers so far. Remember to like, subscribe, and share Elite Rugby SandC on all social media platforms to all your family and friends. Thanks again for all your support, and now back to the episode.
100%. Is there anything that comes to mind that should be avoided in preseason training?
Avoided in preseason training. And that's hard. You're going to talk about each one, so that's probably why you asked that question. I think it should be what should be avoided is everyone's winning preseason. So don't think you've got a great preseason just because it's going well. Okay, so I've been on ones where we've had perfect and hardly any injuries. We haven't performed well. Been in ones where you've had little injuries here and there. You're a bit worried, but you've actually performed well. So sometimes it's to be on the edge of performance, you have to be on the edge of health sometimes, and it's that really unique balancing act.
For me, it's two things come to mind. The first one is, those preseason games where you're playing really good footy, you're smashing the opposition. Like, remember, as you as the coach and you as a player, bring yourself back down, because it's just the preseason. You got a long season to go, and that first 4 weeks, things could, shit could hit the fan, and you're actually not in the position that you want. So control your emotions and don't switch off for that 3 to 4 week period where you are playing trial games. Really make sure that you're working hard, and just because you are winning doesn't mean you can't improve upon anything at all. So really make sure that you got those things to work on. The second thing would be, doing heaps of beach sessions. Just because you're located next to the beach and you want to do training down there on the beach, do some running, do some skill stuff, I think a one-off is fine, or once every 6 weeks just to change things up, I think is fine. But if you're doing a beach session every single week, or a couple over the span of 2 to 3 weeks, I think that's too much, and I don't think you realize you're not actually getting the skill execution or running styles or whatever you want out of that beach session. You're actually changing a lot and probably getting yourself into sloppy habits and sloppy just training, to be honest. So if you are located next to the beach and it's part of your routine as an athlete or just a team, I don't think you're doing the best for the team itself. So I would say avoid the beach session as much as you can. Once every now and again is fine, but if you're doing more than that, then yeah, you're not doing anything positive in my eyes.
Yeah. Do you play on the beach?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, different running. I can understand some tackling technique, working on those type of things because it's off the ground, and yeah, a mix up of facilities is actually quite good. So I do like a mix up, but you're right. Having you can go to nothing wrong with going to wrestle mats as well, and keeping that intensity up, and you know, not wanting to be seen just because you good-looking athletes and wanting to be out seen in public. It should maybe be closed doors and actually focus.
100%. So taking the team away on a preseason trip, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Absolutely good thing because the preseason trip isn't always about the training. The training sometimes even might make the back step in a way, but it's the first chance that you will get as a group for that year to get away from your family lives, get away from other things that are really, really important in your world. But then you can just center in on that team, look at your dynamics, and do your goal setting in a unique environment that is we don't have the normal distractions. And that's why you go away on a team thing. It's not necessarily about hard training, it's about um, people getting to meet and understand, you getting to walk in front of the group so that they can understand and build empathy and build good relationships around each other and do goal setting. So it's valuable. It would be something that you basically, if you're not doing that, you probably don't worry about the technical and tactical. That's the social and group dynamic that is. I've seen it done in places when it's done really well almost know when you leave there, you're probably going to win. But when I've seen it done where it hasn't quite worked, you know that you're working harder than it's not natural. Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, and I think a preseason trip is so much better than a postseason trip. I think it's more like an Aussie rules thing that the players organise and go away and do a postseason trip. But it's just something about the preseason trip when you're all together and that that optimism and positivity of you're going to have a really good successful season is there, and you're all there doing some work. You could be playing a trial game that weekend, but you also have an emphasis on team building. You could go, what we've done in the past is go up Mount Kosciuszko as a team, and that's the hardest thing that you're ever going to do that season. And when you get yourself into a bad situation in a game, you can easily reflect back to that situation. We're like, remember when we ran out Mount Kosciuszko? That was way harder than this game. So we're not tired. We're ready to go. This isn't hard. Let's keep pushing ourselves. So I think you can find a new level if you do these preseason trips. If you're going to plan it around doing something very challenging like that, I think is a great way. But if you're allowing your team to build up that cohesion and team building, it's going to go a long way. And then also, enjoy yourself. If it's, senior footy where everyone's the correct age, go have some beers, have a good time out. You don't have to go out on the town, but just if you have an environment or you're staying at a place where it's just you and the team having a few beers around a campfire or something like that, it can go a long way. And it's really good fun. And yeah, you can definitely get a good sense for how the team's tracking along, and if you have gonna set yourself up for a really good season.
Yep, absolutely.
So if athletes do arrive late into the preseason block for whatever reason, say in Clubland, how can you best introduce them into that training block?
So let's just say they've arrived late because they've relocated or they've had a little niggle. The first thing you're going to do is get them used to the training week again. Okay, here we go. You're getting back into the training. If they're decent type of athlete, you just might put them in the fitness drills and so forth in the minimum block for the first week. If they're coming back from an injury that prevents them from doing that, well, when the hardest conditioning blocks are, they might go off feet, okay, and do that because they haven't been on feet, their calf load isn't there, they haven't got the tissue tolerance. So you go, yep, I want you to work on some of your conditioning or your repeat effort or energy system stuff. We'll take some of the mechanical load out of your skeletal system in a way. For the athlete that can run, let's start them with the easy group just so that we can get them some time on feet and not necessarily concerned with the energy system development. That's more of a time on feet. And as they progress through the week, you bring them up to the standard that they should be at. So it's just really sensible load management without saying load as in looking at everything, just how you would load someone up that's starting from basically they've started a few weeks back to where the guys are. You'd start them back where they were, and maybe they speed up faster through that process, but you just still have to build them up. How about yourself?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And you just got to remember anything like something we've learned at the ACA conference is with Glenn Stewart. Anything new is going to be quite risky or dangerous. So if you're an athlete and you have been training in the off season and you're really good condition, that new team you're going to has new sessions and it's something completely new to you. So really make sure that you just spend that first 1 to 2 weeks in those lower running groups or in an introduction program to the gym training that you're doing. You can get away with the gym stuff if you've got a really good training age, but just earn the right to get into that and make sure that you're not just going 110% and then something happens, and anything new does hold a bit of a risk. And you just got to make sure that you have that in your mind and just really get an understanding of, okay, this is how we train. This is the days I need to rest. These are the days I need to do gym and all that aspect. And as a coach as well, just remembering, yeah, this is a new type of stimulus for them. They may or may not have been training well. I'm not too sure. So I'm just going to introduce them for the first couple of weeks and then assess from there where I put them and place them in terms of their running and in terms of their gym sessions as well. Don't be too disheartened if you are a seasoned athlete and you do have to sort of earn the right. Like, no, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So I think, yeah, just making sure that anything new, just be caution with it and then just slowly earn the right. And after that first 1 to 2 weeks, you're definitely going to hit the ground running and will be in a good position.
Yep, I totally agree.
How do you know if you're doing too much or not enough during the preseason in regards to field and gym training?
Okay, so fitness and fatigue, or being unfit and fatigue, can look similar in a way. Okay, so usually if you're not doing enough, it would be that they don't challenge, they're meeting all their expectations. When they first get the training, everyone's bouncing around like idiots and wanting to do extra skill work and play touch and stuff. Probably not challenging them enough. I'm thinking from a clubland point of view, different at a professional level. If you're doing too much, what you start seeing is the workhorses of your team that you could traditionally get a hammer to them and hit them and they wouldn't say boo, are starting to go, oh, I'm a bit tired, I'm a bit flat, and they're starting to get little niggles. Then you almost have your canaries that are like, wow, okay, if this group of people is really struggling to warm up, they're really in poor moods, they're not picking up simple things, they're making mistakes with their catch pass, that's when you know. So there's some simple things you can just look at without some technology. What have you done non-technology wise?
Yeah, it's trusting those athletes in my squad who are senior and I know train really hard and they understand their bodies as well. And it's just like you said, having those conversations with them and then understanding, okay, do you think the training stimulus is pretty good? Yeah, I think it's really good. And I think we're going in a well good direction. And then if we are doing too much, they know like, hey, that was really hard block. Like I was struggling to make the times. If I'm struggling, then everyone else is probably struggling as well. So I think it's having some really good communication with that group. And yeah, just like you said, how do my athletes look before and after training? Do they look like they're in a good, state before training, not, too high of energy or too flat? And then after training, like, do they look like they've like, wow, that was a good session. I worked hard and I'm ready to go again. And you can play around with those distances as well with your running out on the field. And if they're just not hitting those times and distances that you have mapped out, then yeah, you're probably not doing. You're probably over prescribing, and if they're making it very easily, and some athletes are half-assing it, then yes, you are not. You're not doing enough. So you need to adjust it like that. So it's really just something we always talk about here is just using that coaching eye, but also having that clear communication with 3 to 4 players in your group, who are a couple of forwards, couple of backs, and understanding, yeah, do you think we're doing enough? Do you think this is good? And seeing what they're also doing, something I like to always talk about, seeing what they're doing in the other drills, and if they're ticking off the things that you need to, just quickly adjust your training blocks as well. And in the gym, I think if your weights aren't progressing in the way that you want to, and you're not slowly adding those increments of weights into the gym, and you're still lifting the same weight you have for the last 3 weeks, then yeah, you probably are too fatigued. And we just need to adjust or have a scheduled deload week in there, or we might just need to change that stimulus up as well. So, and if in general, if you think, oh, I'm just not looking forward to this training, this gym training, then that's fair enough as well. We might just need to add a couple of, different spices into there to really make sure that you can look forward to the gym session as well. So just changing things up like that, even though there's only so much you can change in the gym. It's all the same stuff at the end of the day. It's just different variations. To be honest, it's all the same key lifts, but just adding in some little variations can definitely go a long way.
And yeah, it's probably even some education. Yeah, do you know what a pre-season's about? It's about the athlete sleeping an hour more than they normally would, and eating more and having better nutritional habits. So it's not just about training load, it's about recovery load. And their responsibility is, yep, you've got a pre-season, you've got to get more rest in. Okay. I can adjust as much as I want here, but you'll need to adjust your life from your nutritional habits and your sleep habits to get through this. If you do that most of the time, you can. But just understanding that sometimes it's not the coach's workload, it's the athlete's ability to moderate their life and their social habits to get through that as well.
100%. So just moving on to the last part, random questions that I sort of just thought about, and we're going to try and keep it as short and sharp as possible. So first one, at what age should my young rugby athlete start in the gym?
So this is a really good question. You think gymnastic type people, they're always doing body weight exercises, right? They're doing that from a young age, male, female, before puberty. So let's say gym means external resistance training other than body weight. I'd say around 15. Okay, so you're looking around that year 10 mark, I'd say would be the beginning of the year 10 is when you'd look at, okay, now we can start lifting with some weights, looking after technique, but then we can actually start building in some load around that age. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think around that 15, 16 mark can be really good to add that external load, and anything before that, you're nailing your push-ups, you're nailing some pull-ups, sit-ups, you're doing all these basic things that we need for you to tick off, and then when you get to there,
plyometrics.
Yep, all that stuff that they should be learning in PE, and you're just adding some extra load into their trainings and stuff if you're having to deal with some of the younger ones, or as a rugby coach, add in some, tumbling and just all these different types of stuff they do at gymnastics. And then, yeah, once they hit around that 15, 16 mark, they're a bit more mature as well, which is probably the key aspect of it, that they can, handle themselves in an adult environment of a gym, because, they may have a school gym, which is fine, but, around that 15, 16 mark, they can actually get a gym membership themselves themselves and then go off and train themselves. But they need to know how to hold themselves in public when training with adults as well, which is really important. So being mature around that age group is definitely a good age to start it.
Yeah, really good point about because it's talking about physical maturity and social maturity, and people, there's 3-year age gaps between some people for that as well.
How do I know if I'm being the best rugby athlete I can be?
You have a plan and you're well balanced. So the best rugby athlete knows their strengths and their weaknesses, and they work equally on their weaknesses as well as their strength, rather than just working on what their favorite thing is to do. That's how you know, particularly when you're young, that you're a focused athlete. From my point of view, how about you?
Yeah, I think if you know you're being the best rugby athlete you can be, is you're doing everything that you can for the team, and you're also making sure that your teammates are being held accountable as well. So I think if you can really nail everything in your life as a rugby athlete and as a person, then you have the right to sort of question or, point the finger towards your teammates to say, hey, you need to step up and be the best that you can be as well. Because if you're not doing that yourself, then I don't think you're allowed to then point the finger to someone else as well. So if you need to be the best rugby athlete you can be, control everything that you can do, and make sure that your teammates are also trying to be the best that they can be as well.
Definitely.
How do I know if I'm being the best coach I can be?
Um, that's a really, really good question, and because coaching is so broad. Again, there's so many topics. Let's go from an S&C point of view. Like everything changes. Okay, like the physical attributes that you're trying to develop or create, and the display of them will always be the same. Okay, how they display that in their sporting arena or field. The prescription to get there will change. That will always be noticed and change in exercise selection. Okay, there's some simple basics that will always be done, but there's so much movement around the prescription of. So if we look at hamstring loading methodology 20 years ago to now, the plethora of information out there and how to do it is changed. So you've got to have a really good filter for what is practical, able to apply, and what is good in research, but what can you apply in large groups quickly. So developing a good filter. Also understanding that you cannot be on top of everything, but what you've got to be is on top of the things that matter for you, your sport, and the job that you have at that time. And understanding that you're learning the whole time. You're never the end product. No one is ever the end product. At first, you're learning sets and reps and periodization and exercise selection. And then you start going into workload management, delegation of work, communication between people, and so forth. So you're always growing, and you know that you're the best coach when you're going, oh, there's something I could do better. That's when you're knowing it. And, it's going to take time. And I'm definitely not there. I have so much more things that I need to do, but your passions change as well. Like at first it was passionate about training athletes, and it's passionate about developing staff. Then it's passionate about trying to get funding models or getting facilities and so forth as well. Just knowing that you're progressing in your passions as well. How about you? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, to add on to that, for me, it would be to be the best. Am I being the best coach that I can be? Is to have the ability to, what's the term that is called? Can you evaluate what you're saying in that moment and in that time? And can you evaluate your own programs and understand if you have been successful or not with that program? Like just having those quick, self check-ins. Okay, I just had a conversation with the athlete, or just had a conversation with the head coach. How did I think that went? Did it actually go the way that I wanted it to go? Did I actually leave that conversation, moving in the right direction, or did I, move in the wrong direction, or I didn't really have a positive interaction with my athlete. I need to make sure that I go and have a positive interaction next time, because I was probably a bit too harsh or wasn't nice enough or whatever it was. I really need to make sure that that self-awareness is probably what I'm trying to say is there. And if you're not really self-aware of how you hold yourself in front of the group, in front of the individual, then you're probably not being the best coach that you can be. And if you're doing some journaling after the session, or just making some quick notes, or just getting your phone out and hitting the record button, just having a quick 1 to 2 minutes talk, and then you save that and can go back to that, I think that's a really good way to taking a step forward to being the best coach that you can be.
Yeah, that's it's funny you say that. I used to sit down and evaluate after coaching sessions, and I was thinking this year I probably haven't done that, and fatigue, just too fatigued, doing too much, like normal job, and then doing so the NRLW. No, by the end I wasn't the best coach I could be because fatigue. So yeah, be careful of what you're passionate about or want to do or enjoy, because yeah, you can do that. I really like the idea of the video, because that's something, okay, I can just do it now, bang, be done with it. So yeah, really good tip. I'm going to be doing that.
And the last one, what are some 1% areas I can work on that will make a positive impact on my rugby ability or coaching ability as a coach or an athlete?
Would be a lot of the sessions are videoed, right? Okay. Just if you're a coach, look at how you're coaching. The words that you're using, the actions, the outcome based on your comments, and that particularly if it's already being videoed. As a player, the 1%ers are like everything's a 1%er. Like that set where you go, oh, I'll push myself a little bit harder, or I'll hold myself back. Like that's 1% in one direction or the other direction. Out of the 100 actions that you have each week, how many have been done intentfully? How many have been done without intent or without focus? That's what I'd look at.
For me, as a coach, I think a good 1%er is focusing on some external language that you use, external cues. If you don't know what that is or haven't been consistent with it, do some more research into it. Go watch Dr. Nick Wickelman. It's going to change your game. It's going to change your life, and just how you. I'm sorry about all the slamming doors if you do hear that on the podcast. It's just the roommates are back. But yeah, if you can look on that external stuff, it's going to make a huge difference. And I always refer back to it as a coach, because it always makes me really understand and self-evaluate how is my language in the gym and out on the field. Am I doing the stuff that I want and getting the actions from my athletes that I want, and the standards as well? So I think that's the 1%er. And then the 1%er for athletes, get your 8 hours plus sleep. It's such a game changer. Like, get your sleep down packed, go to bed on time and wake up on time as well. Don't just be so sporadic with your sleep, because I see it so much and I hear about it so much, and like, okay, I'm tired today, I did this and that and all that. It's like, okay, well, are you getting enough sleep? Oh, not really. Well, damn, go get enough sleep. Have your bed routine in place. Do all that stuff, because no matter what life throws at you, at least you can get a good night's sleep, and you can handle the day so much better on a good night's sleep than if you only had 5 or 6 hours sleep. So yeah, get your sleep in.
Yeah, you can think of babies. What are they doing?
Sleeping all day.
Yeah, they're growing and developing. What are they? Eat and sleep. That's it.
It's a good routine.
And
so
be grumpy
thanks.
at their coaches.
Yeah, 100%. So thanks for joining me today, Ben. First podcast of the year done. And yeah, I think it's been a good one to talk about some rugby stuff, some SandC stuff, and then also just some random questions at the end. So thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Kieren. It's good fun.
Thanks for tuning into another episode of Elite Rugby SandC podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and rate Elite Rugby SandC on Spotify and YouTube, and make sure you follow us on Instagram. Sign up to Come a Beast via the link in the description or via Instagram page. Also, don't wait, make that good decision and join Elite Rugby SandC today and take your game to the next level.